Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. Kwe. Et pour commencer, je tiens à souligner que je me joins à vous depuis le territoire traditionnel des Algonquin Anishinaabe. Thank you all for joining us in advance of World Refugee Day, which will be this Sunday. I also want to take a moment to welcome Rema Jamous, the UNHCR's representative in Canada, who is an outstanding community leader and a partner to the government. I also want to introduce a number of distinguished guests who are joining us virtually. We have Ms. Lisa Smith, who works at the Glen Haven Long-Term Care Facility in Nova Scotia. We also have Khodor Ramlawi, who is also employed there. And finally, we have Mohammed Hakmi, who himself is a refugee and one of the beneficiaries of one of the programs I'm going to touch on today. At this very moment, more than 80 million people around the world have been forced to flee their homes due to conflict, war, and persecution. From the Middle East to Venezuela to Bangladesh, the world is facing a refugee crisis. Vu la situation actuelle, les besoins d'aide aux réfugiés sont énormes, mais cela n'a jamais été aussi compliqué à mettre en œuvre. When the pandemic landed on our shores more than a year ago, global migration was upended. The entire resettlement system was forced into operating at a reduced capacity due to travel restrictions and health protocols that had been effective at managing the pandemic. As the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and my good friend Filippo Grandi said earlier today, COVID-19 stopped so much, but it did not stop war. It did not stop discrimination. And the violence continued. Pourtant, malgré les nombreux défis posés par la pandémie, le Canada n'a jamais fermé ses portes. Nous avons continué à accueillir des réfugiés en sécurité dans notre pays, dont beaucoup se trouvaient dans des situations extrêmes où des vies étaient en jeu. In 2020, we welcomed nearly half of all refugees resettled in the world. Nous avons accueilli près de la moitié des réfugiés réinstallés au monde en 2020. And as the High Commissioner for Refugees recently called Canada, a bright light in a horrible year for refugee resettlement. Cette lumière brille grâce à la générosité des Canadiens qui jouaient un rôle central dans l'accueil des réfugiés dans leur communauté. This speaks to who we are as Canadians, which is open, compassionate, and generous. People from all corners of the globe have sought refuge in Canada, from Poles and Ukrainians in the 19th century to Chilean dissidents in the 1970s to the over 73,000 Syrian refugees who have started the next chapter of their lives here in Canada. Tout cela n'est pas possible parce que les Canadiens donnent de eux-mêmes de toutes les manières possibles et imaginables. Je pense à des gens comme Jim Steele de Guelph en Ontario, qui a personnellement parrainé plus d'une certaine des familles dont beaucoup travaillent encore pour son entreprise. But I'm also thinking about the countless individuals and groups who welcome refugees from across the country, from faith communities who sponsor families to neighbors who help to feed them and support them in their journey of integration. But there's another reason that Canada's light shines brightly, and that is the contributions of refugees themselves. In so many ways, we've seen refugees give back to their new communities and their countries, even during the pandemic. On parle souvent de ce que le Canada offre aux réfugiés, mais il est tout aussi important de reconnaître ce que les réfugiés apportent au Canada. La contribution des réfugiés est immense sur les plans social, culturel et économique. So many refugees have gone on to do incredible things for Canada, from athletes like Alphonso Davies, who's competing right now, to jurists like Justice Rosalie Abella, to artists like Kenan. But we see the contributions and the selflessness of refugees in our communities right across Canada. Take Christian Salas, a 26-year-old Syrian refugee who came to Newmarket, Ontario, just a few years ago. Lorsque la COVID-19 a frappé, notre approvisionnement en équipements de protection individuelle était extrêmement limité et il semblait que le monde entier essayait de s'en emparer. Christian a déclaré qu'il avait été désolé d'entendre que les travailleurs de première ligne étaient en danger à cause du manque de l'EPI et il a lancé cette initiative. Christian asked his employer if he could use their 3D printers, and he did so to make face shields for our frontline workers. And this helped to found the Ontario Personal Protective Equipment Coalition, a group of people working literally 24 hours right around the clock to produce PPE for our frontline workers. He said, in Canada, the term refugee never stopped me from doing anything. What's so incredible about Christian's story is how I've heard it repeated across the country over the past year and a half. From taking care of our seniors to putting food on our tables, refugees have made incredible contributions to Canada's fight against COVID-19. It's because of these examples, what refugees have to give back, to offer, that we should all be motivated to do more. Donc aujourd'hui, je suis heureux de pouvoir souligner plusieurs mesures importantes que prend le gouvernement du Canada pour renforcer la protection et l'intégration des réfugiés. The initiatives and the progress that I'm about to highlight will help Canada offer asylum to more people who need it, welcome more refugees through new channels, and to improve support to those welcomed through community sponsorship. Firstly, I want to share with you how we are going to build on the success of our Economic Mobility Pathways pilot. Launched in 2018, the EMPP recognizes the talents and the skills and the experience of refugees by welcoming them through economic immigration streams. Non seulement le PVAME permet au Canada de réinstaller davantage de réfugiés, mais il démontre tout ce qu'il apporte à notre pays. Je tiens à remercier nos partenaires canadiens, Refugee Point et Talent Beyond Boundaries, pour leur excellent travail et leur aide à la réalisation de ce projet. The first phase of the EMPP has been a success, and now we're building on it with new measures to simplify and expand it to its second phase. Aujourd'hui, dans le cadre de la phase d'essai 2 de PVAME, j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer de nouvelles mesures pour éliminer les obstacles qui se dressent dans le parcours des réfugiés et égaliser les chances pour tous. Nous avons l'intention d'accélérer le traitement des demandes présentées au titre de PVAME par l'entremise de programmes des candidats de province, du programme pilote d'immigration au Canada Atlantique et du programme pilote d'immigration dans les communautés rurales et du Nord. We'll be streamlining our processes, making sure that there's more flexibility with regards to their job qualifications, waiving fees, making it easier for them to get medical coverage, and also ensuring that they are well set up for success when they arrive. Au moyen de ces diverses mesures, nous prévoyons admettre quelques 500 réfugiés par nos voies d'immigration économique au cours des 2 prochaines années. Ces personnes seront en mesure de planifier au avenir plus sûr. Second, I want to talk to you about the work that we are doing with regards to protected persons here in Canada. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, in Canada, we've been able to provide refuge to thousands of asylum claimants. We're now building on the success by increasing the number of protected persons we will welcome this year from 23,500 to 45,000. These are individuals who are in Canada, have been adjudicated by the Immigration, Refugee, and Tribunal Board to have refugee status, and who now will get protected person status. And I'm also pleased to report that of that new enhanced goal, we have already extended protected person status to 17,900. Good progress indeed. Nous allons également accélérer le traitement des demandes, ce qui signifie que davantage de personnes protégées pourront rapidement devenir des résidents permanents et s'enraciner dans leur communauté. And finally, I'd like to talk about private sponsorship of our refugees. And here, let me just take a moment to express my profound gratitude to the Canadians, the faith communities, the civil society, our advocates, our resettlement settlement service partners, all of whom do extraordinary work in welcoming refugees and helping them get set up for success. What began as a response to the Indochina refugee crisis of the 1970s has blossomed into a wonderful initiative that's helped over 350,000 refugees to start new lives in Canada. This program is now being emulated all around the world, from the UK to New Zealand to the Netherlands. Conscient du succès et de l'importance du programme, IRCC a lancé un appel de proposition nationale en janvier de cette année pour aider le secteur à mettre au point des outils à l'appui de parrainage privé. Dans la foulée de ce processus, j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer que jusqu'à 3 millions de dollars sous 2 ans seront versés à 9 organisations. And with that announcement, I'm pleased to highlight that our partners will include the Cité Collège here in Ottawa, the Rainbow Refugee Coalition, who does enormous work for us with the LGBTQ2 community, and many more. À l'occasion de la Journée mondiale des réfugiés, nous célébrons la force et le courage des personnes qui ont été contraintes de fuir leur pays d'origine pour échapper aux menaces contre elles-mêmes et leurs familles. Je tiens à souligner que dans un monde de frontières closes, on se doit de garder en avant et de considérer ce que l'on peut faire pour mieux protéger les personnes parmi les plus vulnérables du globe. This has never been simple or easy work, and it has never been easy. But Canadians know and share in the responsibility and do the work. On this World Refugee Day, I pledge to you that Canada will continue to do its part. Canada has and will continue to be a global leader when it comes to resettling refugees and protecting the world's most vulnerable. And we do that work in conjunction with so many partners, including my friend Rema.
As you will be aware, the UN Refugee Agency released today its annual Global Trends Report in Geneva. Unfortunately, the findings make clear that while the world came to a complete standstill last year, conflict, violence, and persecution continued to rage in many parts of the world. Despite the pandemic and repeated calls from the UN Secretary General to silence the guns and instead focus on battling this worldwide health emergency, unfortunately, the number of people fleeing wars, violence, and persecution in 2020 rose to over 82 million people. To give you a sense of scale, this is roughly equivalent to the populations of Turkey and Germany. It represents a 4% increase over last year, and unfortunately, for 9 years running, a continued increase in the numbers of displaced people around the world. So much so that in the last 10 years alone, we have seen a virtual doubling of that number. Children have been disproportionately affected by forced displacement. And while they represent only 30% of the world's population, unfortunately, they also make up close to half of those forcibly displaced around the world. Over the last 2 years alone, 1 million children were born in exile and unfortunately are likely to remain in that state of limbo for many years to come. Border closures and restrictions on movement made it considerably harder for people fleeing war and persecution to reach safety around the world. At the peak of the pandemic, 164 countries closed their borders, with 99 making no exception for asylum seekers who were seeking protection. And while people continued to flee borders, millions more were displaced within their own countries. In fact, the overwhelming majority of displaced people remain within the borders of their own country, with 48 million forced to flee their homes, but stay within their borders in the hope that the conditions which led to their flight would end. Disasters and climate-related events are increasingly drivers of displacement around the world. Last year, we saw over 30 million people displaced by disasters, the highest figure in a decade. Unfortunately, COVID also impacted the functioning of asylum systems all around the world, and 2020 saw the biggest drop in asylum claims since we began collecting records. When it comes to receiving refugees, the burden is not equally shared. Developing regions continue to shoulder most of the responsibility for hosting displaced populations. 86% of displaced people are in neighboring countries that are themselves crisis areas or grappling with serious development and economic issues. The solutions we normally rely on, including resettlement, also suffered a major blow in 2020. Levels were at their lowest in 20 years, with only 34,000 refugees settled last year because of COVID-related restrictions and the reduction in places available to resettle them. In light of these alarming findings, our message is clear. World leaders must immediately act to reverse the trend of soaring displacement around the world. The difficult reality is that solutions which allow refugees to rebuild their lives, to live in safety and dignity, are becoming more and more elusive. In this context, Canada's commitment to solutions, including humanitarian and development assistance, resettlement, and innovative approaches to refugee inclusion through economic immigration, is greatly appreciated. We welcome Canada's extension of labour mobility for people in need of international protection and see it as an opportunity to expand access in other places, including Latin America. Labour mobility shines a light on the reality that we at UNHCR are already well too aware of, that refugees have skills and talent to contribute if they are given the chance. Thank you.
We will now hear from our guests joining us virtually. On passera maintenant à nos invités qui nous rejoignent virtuellement.
Lisa?
Mohammed, Khodor, and Maya, and all those who are taking in this exciting session today in honor of World Refugee Day. At Glenhaven Manor, where we are a long-term care facility providing care to over 200 residents, we take great pride in being innovative, progressive, and resourceful. And we do that in procuring strategies and practices when it comes to hiring and settling newcomers. Our vision at Glenhaven is to build momentum and vitality in continuing care and to be a community difference maker. And in doing that, we recognize that we need to take bold new steps to achieve our vision. Finding extraordinary partners and identifying new methods to address significant labor shortages has played an important part in inaugurating the course we have been charting. We have established strong working relationships at the local, provincial, and national levels, and most recently have engaged international partners as part of the groundbreaking project that will provide a viable pathway from crisis to safety for refugees and their families, refugees who have a wealth of talent, education, and expertise, but have found themselves, through no fault of their own, in vulnerable and dangerous situations. The occupation of a continuing care assistant has been identified and designated in Nova Scotia as one of several careers in demand. And we are very proud to be part of this extraordinary global collaboration through EMPP that has the capacity to positively change the lives of these refugees and their families, and doing that by offering them a pathway to permanent residence in Canada. Yet the primary goal for being an active partner in this international project is to address our recruitment needs for the benefits of our residents and ultimately our staff. These candidates are professionals who have the clear capacity to be valued and contributing members of society with great gifts to offer our organization, our communities, and our country. To be able to present them with the opportunity to regain their dignity and to be difference makers in their own rights is also very humbling and inspiring. We have a great commitment and passion for this exciting and innovative stream, the EMPP. It allows us to connect the qualified refugees to our organization, and our organization is one of many in healthcare facing specific skilled labor gaps. It also allows us to identify skilled and experienced refugees in the healthcare professions and subsequently facilitates connecting them with us and others in our sector, those of us facing major labor shortages. So known for our commitment to excellence and innovation, we were the first employer in Nova Scotia to be part of this exciting new project with multiple partners. And that again empowers refugees to find new pathways from crisis to safety and ultimately to employment. We interviewed international applicants from Kenya and Lebanon via Skype in July 2019, and one of our candidates is on the call with us today and very excited about that. And then we did travel to Nairobi, Kenya, and we were at the UN compound near Dadaab Refuge Complex in Garissa County in November 2019, where we also recruited and interviewed other CCA candidates. To date, we are so very proud to say we have extended 15 job offers. And I have to say the caliber of these candidates was not only outstanding, it well exceeded our expectations. They truly were exceptional. They're competent, qualified individuals who provide outstanding quality care and well-being for our residents. And they are an extraordinary team member with the capacity to inspire and motivate our current staff. Just to be clear, despite hiring many local employees and actively continuing to do so, there have not been enough qualified candidates to fill our needs. Our search led us to pursue even more candidates through EMPP. Because of the qualified candidates we had the opportunity to interview previously, and the knowledge that there were so many more is why we made the trip to Kenya. And certainly meeting candidates in person allowed us to gain that greater understanding of their qualifications and skills, which were again of a very high standard. Many people thanked us when we went to Kenya, and it was a privilege to meet them. But ultimately, it is still about finding the right staff for Glenhaven, and it is a win-win for all of us. It is definitely an effective way to hire amazing qualified candidates in these times where brave new solutions are needed. We also just want to share that in addition to having access to such a great, vast talent pool, we have provided support to our newcomers, and we do that through transition living accommodations. We want to make sure that when our newcomers arrive, that they have a safe landing spot. We offer them many opportunities for professional growth and advancement with tangible results, and we allow them and support them in bridging to their nursing credentials. We also partner with many organizations in our community, and those organizations offer settlement support and connection to others for lasting friendship, community engagement, and a sense of belonging, addressing the two areas that most often are the most challenging for newcomers: the lack of familiarity, community support, and connections. We're very proud to say for the past 2 years, we also have an amazing newcomer guide. And that newcomer guide is so comprehensive, and it's about moving to Canada, living in Pictou County, and working at Glenhaven Manor. It is a 40-page flip book on our website, and our newcomers have really found that to be most helpful. Really, today is an exciting day, and we're so proud to be part of celebrating World Refugee Day. We're so happy that we are part of EMPP, and we look forward to bringing more candidates to Glenhaven Manor. Certainly excited about those candidates who are en route and will hopefully be here soon, but certainly looking forward to interviewing many, many more, and having such a diverse team here at Glenhaven has truly been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Khodor?
President. Hello, Sir President.
Yes, please.
My name is Khodor Ramlawi. I'm Palestinian refugee in Lebanon. I born in Lebanon in 1983. I'm married. I have 2 daughters. They are refugees, Palestinian refugees too. My wife is Lebanese and my mother is Lebanese. But we were in Lebanon. You know, to be a refugee, it's something difficult, especially it is not your country. There is no rights for you, and you can't own a house, and if you will study, you are not allowed to study to be a lawyer or to be a doctor because you are a refugee. I was so proud and I was so happy when I get a permanent resident here. That's mean you have your rights. It's first time for me to feel that I have a rights. Finally, I'm a human. I have a right. I'm not a refugee, and I will be so happy when I will be a Canadian citizen. I'm looking for this time to be a Canadian citizen because it is my dream, and it is my family dream too. Because finally we will have our rights. Finally we will be a citizens. We have a nationality. It's something difficult. I'm sorry for that. But I would like to say many thanks for Talent Beyond Borders at the EMPP program, and to Miss Lisa and Glenn Heaven to give me a chance, because I'm here in Canada now with my family. And me and my family are so happy because we are in Canada. And I'm looking for my daughters too. They will not be refugees anymore. They have the rights now. They are in the safe place. There is no war, and then there is no financial crisis, and they have food. And what is the bad story now? What we hear from Lebanon, there is no foods for babies. There is no foods for babies. We are in century 21, 20. And I can't imagine there is no foods for baby. Oh my God. I'm lucky because my two daughters now they can play and safe. They are happy. They have rights. They are parent present now, and soon we will be citizens. I would like to say really many thanks for everyone. Give me a hands for Canada and for TBB and for Glenhaven. And really I found here in Canada my new family in Glenhaven with Miss Lisa. She's a good supporter for us. We've never feel that we are here newcomers or something like that. From the beginning, she gave us a hand, and she's always asking, and she's always supportive of us. Miss Lisa, many thanks for you. And Mr. President, many thanks for you. And many thanks because you are in us, because you are hearing us.
Thank you very much for those inspirational words to you and to your wife. And finally, we will conclude with Mohammed.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister, Rema, Lisa, and Khodor. So I'm pleased for being here today with you, with all of you, and speaking here. So today we are making this year's World Refugee Day during a severe global crisis, a COVID-19 pandemic. For a global crisis, we need a collective response, as we should not forget or ignore the number of people forced to flee their homes. Unfortunately, this number is growing significantly by the day. 10 years ago, when my displacement journey started, I didn't only flee my home, part of my family and beloved ones. It was also fleeing my dreams and goals that every young individual has. Yet, throughout that challenging period, a beam of hope radiated to restore a dream I've had once. Today, I consider myself one of the privileged refugees, being one of the first few refugee talents to arrive in Canada through the Economic Mobility Pathway Program. Today, I'm a living example that refugees are not burdened if their talent and skills are utilized and harnessed. I'm today a talent, an opportunity, and a full acting member, a Canadian performing my duties toward the community and my new home. Today, and with other colleagues at work, for example, fulfilling my role like any other normal human being in advancing our country and making our world better place to live. Today, I exploit any opportunity to collaborate and put my skills with other NGOs and refugee-led organizations to help as many refugees as possible to get their opportunities and restore dreams they have had once. I was thrilled to hear the announcement by the Minister Mancino last summer that Canada would commit to resettling 500 refugees under the Economic Mobility Pathway Program, EMPP. That program was only possible because of all the collaboration of all stakeholders, government, international NGOs like Talent Beyond Boundaries, UNHCR, private sectors like Land Heaven and Bonfire, the company that I work at right now, and especially the refugee-led organizations like Jumpstart Refugee Talent in Canada, a local NGO here in Canada, and Refugee Talent in Australia as well. Those organizations that work relentlessly without expectation because of their lived experience. Today, I'm doing my best to help Jumpstart Refugee Talent in Canada, securing other refugee meaningful employment in Canada. This is an example that I hope all follow to continue this work and advancing those numbers to resettle more refugees each year and create more complementary pathways to bring more talents and opportunities like mine. Thank you, Minister, for leadership, and thank you, Canada.
Thank you, Mohammed, Khodor, Lisa, and to Rema. And now we will turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. We will now begin the press conference portion of the event, en commençant maintenant la conférence de presse. We will begin with questions from the phone, en commençant avec les questions de téléphone. Operator?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. Our first question, Anna Miller-Paperny from Reuters. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. Will the majority of the increase in the envelope for protected persons be family members of refugee claimants already in Canada? And if so, how do you plan to address the growing backlog of applications for family members that Canada has seen over the past few years?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Anna. And certainly it goes without saying that this past year has been very challenging, as you heard Rema highlight in the UN report. But notwithstanding those challenges, Canada has found ways to continue to resettle refugees, particularly the most urgent cases, but also develop a number of innovative pathways to extend and offer protection to the world's most vulnerable. And you heard today just 2 examples of how we are advancing with that work, both under the EMPP program, and it was wonderful to hear from our guests from Nova Scotia, some of whom have taken advantage of it. I'm looking at Mohammed, he's smiling. Thank you again, Mohammed. But with regards to our announcement today, where we are significantly increasing our goals to extend protection to those whose claims have been adjudicated and who now have refugee status and who need that certainty to be able to remain in Canada. Our work has been truly progressive and significant. We have redoubled our efforts. The update that I provided in the context of today's announcement is that we've already extended protection to 17,900 approximately protected persons. And so that is, again, roughly 80% of our year to date goal before we increased it. And now with that progress, we're almost at the halfway point of the much higher goal that we have set. And with regards to your question about families, yes, you're quite right. Protected persons are able to apply for status for their immediate family members. This is something that we offer economic immigrants. And certainly, we hope to be able to facilitate their travel, obviously taking into consideration the ongoing travel restrictions. But as I say, the progress that we have made is a real reflection of Canada's ongoing leadership to resettle refugees and to offer protection to the world's most vulnerable.
Follow up, Anna?
Okay, so I was also wondering if you're planning to make it any easier for asylum seekers to get to Canada. You know, this adds sort of space in the envelope for them, but how are they going to get here?
Well, as you again heard from Rema, but also the United Nations High Commissioner Filippo Grandi, Canada has been a bright light in what has been a very dark and challenging time for migration around the world. And we have demonstrated our commitment to find innovative pathways to resettle the most urgent cases. And I want to take an opportunity to thank Rema, to thank our friends at the UN, to thank the IOM in searching out corridors that allows us to offer safe harbor to refugees who have been persecuted through no fault of their own. And we have been able to do that work, obviously adhering to the health protocols that are necessary to keep everyone safe. We're going to continue to work very closely with our international partners. We're also going to work very closely with civil society here in Canada. And I want to take a moment to say a big thank you to ordinary Canadians and communities who have stepped up and who recognize that refugees have so much to offer. I think about the Guardian Angels program that we launched earlier this year in recognition of those asylum seekers, including some failed asylum seekers, who despite all of the adversity that they had to overcome just to get to Canada, went to work. They went to work in our hospitals, in our long-term care homes, offering treatment to the most ill and needy Canadians throughout the first wave of the pandemic. And that demonstrates how we are trying to facilitate travel, how we are doing more to extend status and protection to the world's most vulnerable. And I think Canadians understand that. They understand that if people come here, as you've heard from Mohammed and Khodor and their families, in conjunction with long-term care providers like Lisa and Glen Haven, that there is a synergy of goodwill that allows Canada to be a world leader when it comes to resettling refugees. And certainly that is inspiration for us to continue to do more in this space.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Do we have any other questions? Est-ce qu'on a des autres questions? Operateur?
Thank you. Merci. We have no more questions at this time. Je n'ai plus de questions pour le moment. I'd like to return the meeting back over to Alexander Cohen.
I think we have one in the room from Mon from CP. Go ahead, Mon.
Good afternoon. Hey, how are you? It's Man Hamidi with the Canadian Press. One of the three resettlement programs to sponsor refugees in Canada, the blended visa office referred program, hasn't reached its target in the last 5 years since 2016. Why is that, and what you're doing to fix this?
Thank you very much for the question, Mon. And just for the benefit of everyone else, this is the blended program that takes some contributions from the government, but also some contributions from privately sponsored communities in an effort to try and resettle refugees. And I fully acknowledge that this is one of those streams where we've had some challenges around finding a proper alignment between what the community needs and what is the best fit for refugees. But I think this is why shining a light on the successes that we have with the EMPP, as you've heard from our guest today, does allow for, I think, really a good partnership and collaboration between communities who wish to sponsor refugees and the skills and the experience and the desire to give back, as you heard from Khodor and from Mohammed. And my sincere hope is that with the successes that we build on through the EMP, as well as making some of the adjustments that I talked about, where we're trying to cut out some of the red tape, some of the barriers that have perhaps also been a challenge, that we're going to be able to scale up the work of that into some other programs, including the BVOR potentially. But I would just say, as you've heard me say, but not only me, but our friends at the United Nations, that Canada has shown resilient leadership in a very challenging time, Mom. This has been a time when the world has asked Canada to step up, and we have, I think, and not just we in the government, but Canadians have answered that call and will continue to, because the migration crisis is not going anywhere. If anything, it has been exacerbated by the pandemic, and we have an opportunity to allow refugees to come and to give back, and by doing so, to build a stronger country and a more peaceful world as well.
Just a quick follow-up. You mentioned the economic mobility pathway pilot. It's still kind of a small pilot project. We're talking about 500 applicants this year. What are the indicators or what are the measures that you're looking at to make this program a permanent program with like maybe thousands of applicants every year? And also I would like to hear from Ms. Jamous on this topic regarding specifically, does the UNHCR support the idea of accepting refugees on an economic basis rather than humanitarian basis?
Well, I thank you for both of your questions, which I think are very important and incisive. I would say a sure indication of the success of this program is if we have more testimonials like Mohammed and Khodor, and that we continue to see leaders not only within the healthcare sector like Glen Haven, but business leaders. And I have repeatedly heard enthusiasm from so many leaders in the private sector who are very happy to hear about the EMPP and the changes that we're making to it, because they too also see an opportunity for refugees who possess skills to come and hit the ground running in our economy. And you know, if anything, I hope that we can amplify that narrative, because it certainly, I think, ensures Canadians that we are doing the right thing here. And with regards to your second question, I think you know, it is important that we recognize that refugees who are seeking asylum in Canada should be afforded the protection and the status that is commensurate with their circumstances, particularly if they're fleeing war and conflict and persecution. And that is why we work closely with the United Nations and the IOM. That is why we've set up an independent tribunal to adjudicate these claims, which is, again, a real shining example of the way in which Canada is upholding human rights with our robust asylum system. And I'll turn it over to Rema.
Thank you. In my opening remarks, I noted that year-on-year displacement levels around the world continue to grow. Unfortunately, solutions have not kept pace with the need. And so we are required to innovate. We have to find new solutions. Refugee resettlement is something that people around the world associate with refugees. In fact, it is one of the most visible solutions, but it's also one of the most limited in number. So any opportunity we have to expand that space and to provide opportunities for refugees, skilled refugees who bring experience, who bring education, and can immediately integrate and independently earn an income in dignity, is something we wholeheartedly welcome, not least because it means that we can free up that space for another family and another vulnerable person to be resettled under traditional resettlement. So we wholeheartedly welcome this. And in fact, because the labor mobility program aims to match skilled refugees with employers in sectors that are specifically suffering from persistent labor shortages, we really see that as a win-win. And in that respect, we encourage innovation and the creation of solutions to address global displacement around the world. And certainly this is a really good example of it.
Thank you, Man. If we have no other questions from the phone, then this concludes the press conference. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. Bon vendredi tout le monde.